that off my screen. All right, you guys, thank you so much for coming to our last book study. I can't believe it, for Polyvagal World. I waited for this book to come out because it was the trauma traffic light. It's the, what we've been using and teaching polyvagal with for years now. And so it was thrilling that there was finally a book to back it up, even though at the end of the day, the idea came from them to begin with. So we're going to be wrapping that up. And I'm going to put this out there, and I want you guys to look into it. I am going to get a polyvagal certification at the Polyvagal Institute this summer. I've decided that that would be a responsible thing for me to do since I teach so much of this. And so I'm going to be, we have the Facebook page, so I'm going to be putting out resources. Like today, I put out a resource from Deb Dana on how to work with our complex clients that don't have any ventral vagal activity whatsoever. But this is a question that comes up for me all the time in the trainings. What do we do if we don't have green, if we don't have ventral vagal in our clients? And so Deb Dana talks about it from a perspective of glimmers. I'm not a real fan of that word, but it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, it's about a moment in time. And so when we're teaching our clients about how to secure a space in a moment, we also want them to figure out how to embrace a ventral vagal moment. And so I think that the language is really important. Okay, so I'm going to continue to post there until we come up with our next book. But I want you to look into this book. It's called Stuck Not Broken. There's a number of them. There's two now. There's going to be a third, but it's Trauma and the Polyvagal Paradigm by Justin Sunseri. So Sunseri. I would love it if you would look it up and see if that's something that you would be interested in, or if anybody knows anything about it, if you could throw that in chat and I could look at it when we're done. So that's something I'm thinking about. Of course, there's Deb Dana's classic, but I really feel like everybody read it. And I want to do it from a trauma perspective, the polyvagal. And we've already done Rebecca Case. So I guess we could do Ariella Schwartz. But so anyway, we're just thinking on what we want to do next. And so if you've got some ideas, put it out there. And now let's just jump in. And this is a picture of me and Stephen Porges. And it was from our last conference. And then there he is with his son. So I'm like implying that maybe I'm part of the family, even though I'm not. So trauma is defined by how our nervous system responds to it. We're talking about identifying the state before the story. I just put this to start this chapter because we're going into some issues that are more personal for Stephen and Seth. And so, why are we going to be looking at this topic at the very end of the book? So while avoiding others, wait, that doesn't make sense. While avoiding others protected us from infection. Oh, okay, I got it. While avoiding others, we're talking about the pandemic because this chapter is called The Pandemic Paradox. While avoiding others was supposed to protect us from infection, it simultaneously removed the very thing that our nervous systems needed to feel safe, which was human connection. So the whole chapter is about how the pandemic was dealt with and how basically the consequences of the pandemic were not only the trauma that we experienced around the pandemic, but how we really did a number on our autonomic nervous system. That polyvagal theory explains that isolation is often unconsciously registered by the nervous system as a threat and not safety. So when you're alone, and there are a lot of people that are alone, that like to be alone, what does that look like as far as how your autonomic nervous system is engaging with that? And something I want to throw out there, if you're doing like parts work, for example, and you've got your clients teaching them how to engage their parts with each other, that's really the first step. Because people can say, I feel lonelier in a group than I do when I'm by myself. And that's because internally, they're very isolated. And so we want to start there. And that gives us a lot of hope right now because we can work on the internal client, no matter what the external environment looks like. And that no social engagement means no ventral vagal cues. There's no facial expressions. There's no tone of voice. There's no co-regulation. The ventral vagal system goes offline whenever there's any type of danger. So basically what this is saying is if you're isolated, your autonomic nervous system is going to pick it up as dangerous. And when you're in this danger, which is going to be sympathetic or dorsal, that means that the part of your brain that you need online is offline. And that's kind of the whole point behind the polyvagal theory and integrating it into our trauma work. I try to keep my finger on the pulse of trauma work. And I'm seeing a lot of parts work. I'm seeing a lot of EMDR, seeing a lot of somatic work, but I'm not seeing a lot of polyvagal being integrated into all of this. And it really needs to be. I think our first question when we do parts work is, what polyvagal energy is that part holding or experiencing? And then from there is how you determine what your next step is or what the treatment plan is going to look like. So the pandemic paradox, basically talking about the paradox between being safe and healthy, right? By being alone, and yet being alone, not being safe and healthy. So what happens when connection is a threat? Humans are biologically wired for social connection, biologically wired for social connection and co-regulation. And this is where polyvagal theory can come in handy because it gives us language. It emphasizes how this face-to-face safety is a gateway to health. We talk about safety being our treatment plan. We can't do trauma work unless we've got our clients able to co-regulate and co-connect with us in the office. Once again, and I am going to be pulling parts work into our discussion today. When we talk about working with a client from an IFS perspective, for example, and we're doing direct access, I am the client's higher self because they don't have any yet. And if they don't have any higher self yet, they don't have any ventral vagal, because those two go hand in hand. And so if I am the higher self and I am going to be the ventral vagal, I'm mentoring for the client and making connection with the client and with those parts that are either in sympathetic energy or dorsal vagal energy. And I just love this visual that was created for the advanced training, where we're talking about parts and we want to know what energy they are before we can determine what we're going to be doing next. COVID-19 forced isolation to ensure survival, creating a nervous system dilemma. The paradox, what protects us physically may have dysregulated us neurologically. So this is what the chapter is about. So social connection as a biological imperative. It is essential. Safe social interaction activates the ventral vagal green state. So that interaction that involves facial expression, tone of voice, posture, it's all information that's being floated back and forth on a regular basis unconsciously. This state supports our health, our growth, and our restoration. So being with trusted others shields stress and promotes our resilience. And so when we talk about fellowships, when we talk about finding groups of like-minded people, it's about building a place of trust. If you're working in addiction, I work with a lot of addiction, and 12 steps isn't your thing, then go find smart recovery. Go find some type of fellowship where you can feel heard and feel important and visible with others. Because isolation exhausts our regulation, increasing our risk for trauma and illness. So our goal is green. Go green. Go Spartans. Eric, no comment. Go green, go green. Okay, so without co-regulation, the nervous system shifts into yellow or red. Hello, love this slide too, right? Made by Katie also for our advanced training. Without co-regulation, nervous system switches into yellow or red. Once again, our green is going to be that ventral vagal, co-regulated, mindful, present, prefrontal cortex access. This is where our positive cognitions and beliefs are. This is where our compassion is. This is where we can access what we need to get engaged with higher self. And then yellow is going to be our sympathetic fight flight, and our red's going to be our dissociation shutdown. So prolonged dysregulation leads to the reactivity, emotional rigidity, and survival-based behaviors. So this is a decrease of what we call vagal tone. Vagal tone is the ability to get that ventral vagal going. It's the ability to shift into that ventral vagal. When you do pendulation and you're going from secure space to a distress or a disturbance back to secure space, you are building your vagal tone. Pendulation is really important to practice with our clients, not only teaching them, but then strengthening that vagal. Stressful events create a nervous system shutdown and are more likely to encode as trauma. That's where encoding of trauma comes from. It's about the autonomic nervous system's reaction. The beautiful thing about being an EMDR therapist is we can go in and change that encoding. We can do it and create transformation right away, which is cool. Shared isolation erodes the baseline safety and increased individual and social distress. So what is the baseline? Because if your client comes from a lot of trauma, you would imagine that then they're always looking for more danger in their environment. Whereas if a client comes from maybe a more secure attachment or more of a good enough family system, they're not going to constantly be hypervigilant and looking for what could be dangerous. So social ruptures and shared dysregulation when in defensive states, and we're talking about our protector parts, we prioritize survival over compassion and nuance. I love this picture because we're talking about the exile that's trapped in the castle. It's exiled, and we have rows and rows of protector parts that we need to get through in order to get to that exile. And those protector parts are going to be, they're going to come in all different shapes and sizes, but every protector part has polyvagal energy. That's the key. So one guard may be in sympathetic and wants to fight or flight, and another guard may be in dorsal vagal and wants to shut down. Both decisions are in service of the survival of the client. So you're not going to get close to the exile because I'm going to protect that exile. I'm a protector part. I'm a blocking belief. I'm a firefighter. I'm a manager. Call it what you want. And at the end of the day, if I'm yellow, I'm going to fight you because I've got cortisol and adrenaline pumping through my system, or we're going to shut down and I'm going to dissociate, which means my body is literally preparing for death. Very different physiological states. So very exciting that it helps us decide how to work with our clients. Cultural and political divisions intensify as the nervous system searches for threats. So if you're already hypervigilant and you've already experienced a lot of trauma that can be dangerous, you're going to be on the lookout. And anything that comes your way, if it's through social media, if it's through just hearing somebody over talking over at a restaurant at the table next to you, you're going to pick up on it. You're constantly listening for it. Many people remain in chronic mobilization or shutdown, unable to access connection. If you're in that yellow sympathetic state and your heart rate is up and your blood pressure is up and you have cortisol and adrenaline that's constantly pumping through your bloodstream, it's a stress hormone. It's not healthy. So your body's going to take the brunt for that. And there'll be chronic medical issues as well as everything else. And you're going to experience anger and polarization and mistrust become symptoms of unprocessed mutual trauma. When you see all of those protectors in front of the castle, remember, a lot of them, when we have complex trauma, are polarized. The polarized is, but I want to drink. I need to numb. And the other one is, but you can't drink. You have a DUI and you have a court. You might get a felony. And these two are polarized. They're both protecting the client. And at the end of the day, we need them to get along. And also, I might as well point out, one's going to have red dorsal vagal energy, the drinking part, and one's going to have yellow fight flight energy sympathetic, which is going to be the manager part. Not always the case, but usually the case. And how do you work with them? You decide based on their polyvagal energy. Polyvagal informed practices offer pathways back to safety and connection. Once again, we empower our clients. We empower ourselves with the knowledge around what polyvagal is. We have always been about the narrative, but now what polyvagal is saying, we need to know the state before we understand the narrative. We need state before story, is how they say it. Healing requires co-regulation, presence, and embodied safety cues. The connection is not a luxury. It is a biological necessity. And when we talk about connection, of course, there's a lot to be said about connection here, but we need connection here in our hearts. We need connection with our parts first. Are you able to find higher self? Are you able to find adult parts of you? Are you able to embrace your positive neural networks, your positive cognition, your positive belief? Are you able to find those wounded child parts? Are you able to care and love on those wounded child parts? We need to do all of this work first, and then we'll be able to do the work externally. So we've got some time where we can do the work before the work, as Deanie Laliotis would say. As clinicians, we help others reclaim the green zone through relationship. Once again, I'm going to pull from IFS just because it's right in my brain because I'm learning it right now. But I am the higher self. I am the ventral vagal. I am the green zone until my client can be ready to take that from me. So if I'm saying to my client, I hear you, I understand you, I get you, I see you, and the client is then I'm able to say, do you hear this part and why it's so angry? And the client's like, yeah, I can hear this part. You are sharing and connecting that self energy that's here with the client. And that is the whole key to when we're ventral vagal and our clients don't have any, how can we start to transfer what we're showing up with to the client? Why polyvagal theory doesn't offer easy answers? Well, I don't know if I agree with that. I think that once you get the traffic light down, you're either red, yellow, green. I don't know if it gets any easier than that. But polyvagal theory doesn't offer easy solutions. It offers understanding. All right, fair enough. So we want to empower our clients with knowledge. I always say half of change is acknowledgement. So if your client understands it, they're halfway there. We have gotten some excellent feedback on using the traffic light with clients. Unfortunately, with kids, it's used for just discipline, and that's such a shame because boy, would that be easy. But the clients are really, really engaging in, and they come in the session and they'll be like, I was in yellow all weekend. And so that's great. We've got good language. Let's talk about what that means with yellow. Well, it means your heart rate's increasing. It means your blood pressure's increasing. It means that you've got cortisol and adrenaline and you're going to lose your appetite and your mouth is going to get dry and your palms are going to get sweaty. And what else do you do? Oh, you go have a cigarette. What does the cigarette do? Oh, it calms you down. So we get to have these conversations around the polyvagal states. And we have the worksheets. And Eric can put those out if people don't know where to find them. But we have the worksheets that basically help the client put language to the state that they're in and how to work with it and how to shift in and out of it. It's empowering. The lockdown versus the freeze debate missed the nervous system consequences. There was no talk of it. And I try to think like if anybody did talk about it, I don't think they would have listened. But the public health guidance ignored how isolation dysregulates humans. And the ripple effect of the isolations were not factored into early policy. Once again, I'm not really sure how that would work. I think people were in their yellow and in their red, and I don't think they would have been able to hear it anyway. Nervous system burnout and collapse is what we experienced during the pandemic. Isolation without that co-regulation led to widespread emotional burnout. I specifically remember being in yellow and doing everything I was supposed to do, following all the rules, watching, what I needed to watch on my TV, the news updates and whatever it is that we were supposed to be doing. And then it got exhausting. It was like, okay, this is never going to go away. And when the body starts to prepare for death, you go into that dorsal vagal shutdown. And so that was where the hopeless, dysregulated, and disconnected symptoms came in. The nervous system is in chronic threat states that is not able to engage with any type of compassion. Compassion's not an option. And the burnout fostered indifference and opposition to even common sense safety measures. And so there was all kinds of things going on. People leaving their groceries in the garage, or they're not going grocery shopping unless it's 6 a.m. I mean, they did what they had to do. I remember at one point thinking, if I go to work and push the button to take the elevator up, like I could die. Like I remember that thought. Like I really couldn't wrap my brain around this. Fear-driven nervous systems avoidance in service of survival. It all became about, are we going to die? Many began to frame the pandemic as a personal risk calculation, ignoring its results on others. So there was no others that were part of the equation. It was about taking care of yourself. Interdependence was forgotten in favor of autonomy and individualism, and compassion was hidden just when others needed it most. So I don't know if you guys read this chapter, but it's mostly written by Seth, just really kind of speaking to his own experience and how isolating it was. Mistrust, misinformation, and the yellow state. New science was weaponized to spread confusion and fear. It was terrifying, some of the information that was coming out of where we were supposed to be getting information. Shifting guidance was interpreted as failure, not evolution. And people geared up for threat and became reactive and susceptible to blame. In isolation, nervous systems lost their resilience to tolerate uncertainty. Um, Clients were a mess. I don't know how you dealt with it as a therapist. I do know that a lot of my clients don't have any memory of it, and that would suggest being in a dorsal vagal shutdown. Reclaiming regulation and connection, though the worst may be over, we have this collective dysregulation that still lingers. This has given people permission to stay at home. This has given people permission to go find jobs that are only online, or going into the office 2 days a week. This has given permission for people who don't really want to go out. This has given permission for me to sit here and teach from my living room. It's great. I love it. And I just came from an in-person training, and that was really healthy. We were all together. We went to lunch. We laughed. We did all kinds of cool things. And so it's very different. So there are pros and cons to both. Co-regulation and safe social engagement help restore that green state. So we need to be in connection with people. Where are we getting that connection? Are we getting that connection here? I think one of the things that I love, I got a third screen here, and I can put all of you up on a screen and I can see your faces. Now, when we're doing this type of presentation, most people have their cameras off. But when I'm doing a training, it's required by MDRIA to have your camera on. I can see and I can respond. And I can say, Michelle, I see you. Jessica, I see you. I can say that, and I know what you're doing. And Lupe, I see you. And Stephanie, I see you. And I'm not. What is that show when we were kids with the what was it, magnifying glass, right? I see Eric. I see. But it's good. It's all good because the screens are big and the faces are there and the engagement's there. And so just learning how to be more connected online. I know I did some research early when I was doing more teaching online, and our faces are closer. Like when I was in my training this weekend, the people in the back, those people that are always in the back, like I would walk back there and it made them super uncomfortable, but I couldn't really see them. And that's what they wanted, right? But if you're here and you're in your camera, we can see. It's cool. And then, me, I'm just always talking with my hands and I keep putting my hand up because Zoom doesn't know the difference. That's all right. So understanding polyvagal can reduce the blame and dehumanize others. With safety and presence, compassion becomes accessible again. And it's true. And we need to figure out what that's going to look like. We need to figure out how to incorporate that in the lives that we're, experiencing today and going forward. This is kind of a key to our work. Trauma has a hidden risk factor. Empathy becomes difficult when our nervous systems are under threat. Each person's resilience to stressors like COVID is different. There are studies that show that trauma histories increase vulnerability to COVID distress, even without the infection. And that's so true. Polyvagal theory teaches us that trauma retunes the nervous system toward defense. I remember when they did the research on the kiddos that had experienced 9/11. They were able to look at them 10 years later, 15 years later. And those that came from traumatic backgrounds had a lot of risk factors and had diagnoses for trauma. But the ones that had good enough and had appropriate attachments, their outcome was very different. So it's the same kind of thing here. I mean, during the pandemic, this was really difficult for our trauma survivors because trauma survival is about, I can't escape. I'm not safe. There's no one I can trust. And that is what we felt over and over and over again. We didn't trust. We didn't know what to do. We didn't know if we were going to live. We were trapped. Well, that is a child's nightmare. That's what complex PTSD is all about. And the amount of dissociation that was experienced was yeah, and the amount of dissociation that we're seeing now is more than at least I've ever seen in my lifetime as a therapist. When the past shapes our present resilience, individuals with trauma histories often struggle to access the green. And this has to do with and why I put out the Deb Dana video this morning in the Facebook page that you're all part of, because she literally talks about how to work with our complex trauma clients. She has what's called a glimmer journal. You don't have to take it to that extreme, but at the end of the day, it gives you really good ideas, and it gives us language to help our clients engage in what could potentially be a moment of ventral engagement. So, like, for example, just your dog, right, comes and jumps up on the couch and is so happy to see you. Or you're watching sports and your favorite player, hits a three-pointer, a lot of basketball out there. Or you walk outside, not in Chicago, but you walk outside and that 70-degree day hits you and you're just like, oh, spring is finally here. Or you see the moon and then you see some planets and you're like, wow, look at that. There are moments that we can start to teach our clients about where they just are okay, where they're just fine. And we want them to be bringing them to us. And if you are EMDR trained, we strengthen and enhance those with our positive, slow sets of bilateral per Laurel Purnell. Traumatized individuals often live in that chronic state of defense. So we have to figure out how to introduce to them how to shift into a different state. Marginalization and chronic adversity acts as autonomic disruptors. The dysregulated nervous system is a hidden health risk, much like asthma and diabetes. And I'll be honest, I think the medical community is catching on to this a little bit, because when I hear a client or I hear, somebody that I know or a therapist get a diagnosis from a medical provider that involves the polyvagal, there's hope there, because I would imagine that polyvagal has a lot to do with a lot of our symptoms. I know that when you are in yellow and you're sympathetic and your heart rate is around 150, that if you go into a dorsal vagal shutdown, your heart rate drops to 50 or 60, and that drop is quick. That drop is fast, and it can make you dizzy, and it can also you could pass out. So, there, like I said, that understanding the physiological shifts that are going on are very important, because we name it to tame it. Mr. Siegel, thank you very much. Naming it to tame it. When a virus rewrites the nervous system, like COVID, the long COVID symptoms mirrored signs of autonomic nervous system disruption. There was fatigue, there was brain fog, there was dysregulation that suggested a reduced green zone access and increased red zone activity. When you're in the sympathetic yellow, when you're in the dorsal vagal red, your prefrontal cortex is not accessible. It is the superhighway is shut down, and your body goes into the amygdala, has to figure out how to protect you. The parts decide which energy they want to use. They don't use the prefrontal cortex. It is not engaged. But that prefrontal cortex is where our green is. And so we need to figure out how to teach our clients to re-engage that green zone. Well, in order to do that, they need to have something in green. COVID-19 may retune the nervous system toward chronic defense. It says may retune. I've always wondered, and still wonder, and I know it's going to take a while for the research to come out, but we talk about chronic PTSD or complex PTSD as coming from childhood, with danger, inescapable danger, without safety, without trust, without connection. Well, what was the difference between that and COVID? And COVID went on for months and months and months. And so why wouldn't there be a complex PTSD type of response coming out of COVID? And why wouldn't that maybe answer the question of why are we seeing so much dissociation right now? These changes affect emotional regulation, immune response, and overall well-being. We've got so many people that are suffering from different symptoms and are trying to figure out what they are medically. And a lot of them could be very, very connected to what's going on from a polyvagal perspective. The ripple effect of dysregulation. When regulation breaks down, empathy follows. We cannot be compassionate. We cannot be empathic if we are not able to be in our green ventral with connection, co-connection, being mindful, being present. Dysregulated nervous systems struggle to feel safety, connection, and compassion. Energy from defensive states like anger, fear is contagious. I love this. I learned something really, I read the book, but then I had to come back and create the slides. We neurocept each other. I even asked, like, is neurocept really a word? So yeah, neurocept is a word. We're not just scanning for cues of danger. We're also constantly sending cues through our face, our tone, our body posture, our presence. This means that our nervous systems are talking to each other unconsciously, even when there's no words being spoken. And this means that we do neurocept each other. So it is a word. So who would have known? That's kind of cool. But what is neuroception? It's one of the three principles of polyvagal. And I'll just read it to you. I put it up here for a reason. The subconscious process within our autonomic nervous system that constantly scans for internal, external, and relational environment for cues of safety or danger to help us bring about the most adaptive response. So I am constantly checking. I'm always knowing, oh, there's a dog. Dogs are my thing. So I can always be able to pick up on where there's something going on because I have this alarm system that's going all the time and it's not conscious. But boy, when something shows up that's dangerous, it pulls my attention directly to it. And that's going on a regular basis. And that's what neuroception is. So we're not just scanning for cues of danger. We're also constantly sending cues through our face, tone, body posture, and presence. This means that our nervous systems are constantly talking to each other, even when no words are spoken. And then, what is yours saying? And what is yours saying is a good question. What is your facial expression? What is it that you're walking around with? I was teaching polyvagal in our day four of our advanced training. So grateful that Roy keeps our trainings up to date because polyvagal was not in the trainings 5 years ago. And I was sharing with the group that I couldn't be in ventral, that I could not give them my typical glowing, passionate, like I love this stuff and I love teaching it because I was experiencing a lot of pain, physical pain that day. And so it was really pulling me out of my green. I'm not sure they appreciated the explanation because of course they want their trainer to be there 150%, but I was serious. Like I usually am just glowing when I teach and I could not glow. I could not glow. I still was good because I was in yellow and I was determined and I know my stuff, but I wasn't glowing. I was glowing the next day. I felt a lot better. We're going to watch a quick clip, and I know some of you have seen this before because you have worked with me, and I love showing Daniel Siegel's, but he's just basically going to talk about the importance of our body language and our facial expressions, our tone of voice, our eye contact, our posture. We're going to be talking about posture later also with Amy Cuddy. But here, Eric, will you give me a thumbs up if we're all good? It's a slow start. Come on, Daniel.
So the energy and information flow that is being driven through this boy, the student's brain, if you want to just go brain now on us, is a very different sort. He's got to pick up nonverbal signals from that baby. There are 7 nonverbal signals that we know about. Eye contact, facial expression, I'm going to have you repeat after me soon, tone of voice, posture, gestures, timing, intensity. So let's do that together. You ready? because these are good to memorize because they're often left out of school. So let's do this together. You ready?
Let's
You
all do
point
it
to your
together.
eyes, you say eye contact.
Eye contact,
You circle your face, you say facial expression.
facial expression,
Point to your voice box, you say tone of voice.
tone of voice,
Point to your posture and say posture.
posture,
Gesture and say gesture.
gesture,
Point to where your wristwatch is or what might be and say timing. And then
timing,
make some fists and say intensity. Now you do it.
intensity.
You ready?
Eye contact, facial expression, tone of voice, posture, intensity, timing. Did I get them all?
Yeah, give yourself a hand. That's great.
Thank you, Daniel.
Those are often not the overt curriculum, but in Roots of Empathy, they are the starting place. Picking up nonverbal signals is essential to know what the inner subjective experience is of self or other. To know the inner life of self or other requires these nonverbal signals. And if you were a Martian dropping in to Earth, you'd say, wow, they really either pay attention to Roots of Empathy to nonverbal signals, or wow, here's a classroom without Roots of Empathy. They're not paying any attention to those things, right? Because they're processed in very different areas of the brain, actually. And we're not going to worry about which areas right at this moment, but just say that people who have parents who tune in, so I'm an attachment researcher, this is what we study, children who have parents like Jude here, whose mom is tuned into those nonverbal signals, have kids who develop a very different set of outcomes. And I'll have you consider, they become resilient. These nonverbal signals are the essence of how a baby communicates in the first year of life before linguistic symbols come in.
So that's Daniel Siegel does two videos that we hone in on in the basic trainings at least. And this is one of them, talking about how when we use the EMDR, it's a right brain to right brain psychotherapy, but also taking into consideration that a lot of our clients' trauma is nonverbal. Right? A lot of that trauma is going to come from a space of either not remembering it, having it stored somatically in your body, but not putting language to it because it was so horrific, but also pre-verbal around how old the client was. And it goes all the way to in utero. So if we've got birthing trauma, if we've got any type of medical procedures that needed to happen after birth, all of that is encoded non-verbally. And so it's really important that we're attuned to, and I mean, I think this has been out there for a while, of course, but just being able to put language to the fact that there's a lot that we need to be taking in from our clients around nonverbal cues. So Green Zone is a radical act of healing. Love and kindness are hardest and most needed during threat. Regulation in one nervous system supports the safety in another. So once again, that's us holding our clients, using our higher self or using our parts of us in our ventral vagal to hold the client, to be sending messages to the client. Regulation, or I just read that, we can interpret the defensive cycle by offering presence and compassion. So that's what we're going to be doing. And our green zone energy becomes a ripple of healing. Of others as it reflects. And so, you know, tone of voice, you know, what tone of voice are we using? Are we using a soothing and comforting tone of voice? Body language. What is our body language? What is it communicating to our clients? What is our body position communicating? And our clients are going to be, they're going to react differently to different types of postures and energy. What do we do with this awareness, recognizing signs of dysregulation in yourself and others? Are we able to assess when we're dysregulated? And prioritizing co-regulation over correction or persuasion. So if your client, you know, says, you know, I kind of feel like you're not paying attention to me, are we able to go into a ventral vagal higher self where you're able to validate them, or are we going to immediately get defensive? I know I'm guilty of this. I get kind of thrown off when somebody says something like that to me. I have a client that's always like, I think you're dissociating. And I'm just like, oh, was I dissociating? Like, oh, and so I want to validate. I want to be like, oh, I hear what you're saying. I understand why that would be disruptive. Like, um, so how are we presenting ourselves? And what is our approach to trauma as a biological reality, not as a character flaw? And I think all of us as trauma therapists have gotten to a point where we understand that trauma is the result of what happened to our clients, and that the definition of trauma is not what happened, but how our clients respond to it. So, but asking the question, how can I help others feel just a little safer in this moment, is a great way to adjust yourself in a moment's time in order to pull in that from that ventral vagal and to place yourself in the position to hold another client. Constant emails, messages, and oh, I want to make sure I make that transition. This is the last slide for the pandemic, and he goes into polyvagal at work. And once again, I'm not really sure why, but this is the last chapter. It was kind of an interesting chapter to kind of finish everything up on. And so, there's some good takeaways here. A lot of us are not working in our offices per se because we have found that we can feel more comfortable at home. But then there are others that don't have a choice. So, going into the work environment, constant emails, messages, expectations keep us in survival mode. And the nervous system can't fully turn off without predictability. I don't know about you guys, but the majority of either clients that I see are either on call all the time, they have their phones on all the time, and they constantly have information that are bombarding them. If it's work related, if it's not work related, going into your email and clearing out 10 or 15 emails every 2 hours to just keep yourself on task is something that is common every day. And even the possibility of incoming stress keeps us hypervigilant because at any point in time, somebody could be trying to reach out to you and needing something. And so the thing that calms the nervous system down the most is routine. And I don't know what routine looks like in people's lives these days. My kids are up and gone, so I know that routine was really important as far as regulation goes with kids. But I do find that routine in this day and age is something that's really difficult, and because we're so busy. Chronic stress rewires the brain towards survival. So if you're getting hit over and over and over and over with what is interpreted as stressful, if you're getting hit with, you go in and you see you have 25 emails, or you go in and you see you have 7 text messages, and then I don't even know if you have a phone. I disconnected mine years ago. But if you've got mail piling up and you have taxes to do, it just piles up and piles up, and it creates stress, and it puts your autonomic nervous system on defense. It becomes reactive, it becomes defensive, it becomes irritable. You're not able to access empathy or compassion. You can't access that green state. And the green state is where the problem solving is and the innovation is, to block it. Long-term dysregulation leads to burnout, disconnection, and health decline. I think this is one of the number one issues that we have. And I know for myself and some of my clients, using this concept of putting your to-do list in a parking lot and organizing them, figuring out how to remove it from here and put it somewhere else, like with sticky notes or some type of organization system, that some of our executive functioning skills that people think you're supposed to have naturally are actually something that could be taught and could be really helpful, because we have so much coming at us at once. And our autonomic nervous system is picking this up as dangerous. It just is. That the nervous system requires time in the green zone to heal, think clearly, and connect. So if we take a minute, and I am going to take a minute here, and I'd like for you to think about, when are you in your green zone? And just put some ideas in the chat. Let's because it's important for us if we want our our own system to heal. If we want to be available for people, then we need to figure out where it is that we need to be. And that would be not with our phones, not with our emails. Are you getting anything, Eric?
Oh, these are fun. All right. With my partner dancing. Uh, uh,
Mm.
Puppy, first cup of coffee. Mine is on my sailboat.
Oh,
House is quiet, working out. I'm sorry about working out. That just doesn't sound so hot to me. Quiet times when I'm reading, walking my dog, knitting at home, eating a balanced meal. That's a good one. That's
that's
a
a good
really
one.
good one. Sitting in the sunshine, traveling, hiking somewhere without much responsibility. Uh, get to drink a blackberry Dr. Pepper Zero.
Oh,
I hadn't heard of
oh,
that
that
one yet,
sounds
so
great.
that's good. Um, hey, thanks for chiming in, everybody. These are nice.
Yum. Yeah. Yeah, this is, I mean, this is important. Unfortunately, like if I think about myself, my idea is going to a movie, but I still feel like I'm being drawn into like some kind of fantasy or something. Like, but yeah, it's really about being in a space where we can think clearly and just be able to connect with our environment. Even brief daily moments of calm counteract the cost of always being on. So thinking about, and I'm going to have us go through one more of sending some Eric. What is calm? Where do we find just calm? What are you getting?
My comment on someone else's is about breathing, deep breathing, yoga.
Mm,
Sit quietly and just be, sun hitting the face.
mhm. So being present, breath work.
There you go. Stillness,
Yeah.
warm water.
Yeah.
Paula, by the way, I have been helping clients with the future goal state right now. And the one that I always recommend, especially in consultation for people, is thinking about your putting your feet in perfectly warm pedicure water.
Mm,
Yeah.
that does
So
sound relaxing.
um, that's a
Yeah.
that's a good future goal state. And then we move it to the beach.
Then we move it to the beach. Love it. We're almost there ish.
Ish.
Places would benefit from employees feeling safe. More creativity, better retention, fewer health issues. I'm really impressed with where my daughter works in the city. They provide them with all kinds of things like a breakfast bar, and they have like access to workout facilities, and they constantly have these socials where they have themes and they invite everybody over at about 4 o'clock. And it's just it really makes a big difference. And some places do it, and then some places could care less. So polyvagal theory reminds us that rest is productive and essential for long-term resilience. I know that working with adolescents, rest is one of the big ones. Like they're very sleep deprived, and that affects everything. Modern workplaces monitor productivity through metrics, rankings, and logarithms. It's everything's about the numbers. Everything is about how many numbers. What do the numbers look like? Are you hitting your metrics? It's very stressful because things shift and change, and you may not always be able to hit your metrics. But if the pressure is there, it's always going to be being interpreted as something that's dangerous because it's threatening. Even kind bosses can't buffer the pressure of spreadsheet driven judgment. Constant performance tracking puts workers in a yellow state. And so, once again, if you're in yellow, you can't access your problem solving brain. It actually decreases productivity to put pressure on their workers. We feel on edge, even at home, never fully off duty. This primal sense of being watched disrupts emotional regulation and creativity. High turnover isn't inevitable. It's a sign of nervous system exhaustion. I think that the turnover now in the average corporate job is like 2 years. I know back in the day, you wanted to stick around for a long time, but that's not the case anymore. And safety isn't a perk, it's a biological foundation for retention and innovation. It shouldn't be, oh, this company offers it and this company doesn't. They all should. And if they're not offering it, we have to figure out how we're going to get it. And, once again, like we're talking about this because Seth really wanted to talk about it in his chapter 8, and yet we're all therapists, and I'm not sure how much of it applies and how much of it doesn't. But I do remember when I was in the corporate world, how stressful the energy was. The green state unlocks creativity, collaboration, resilience. Workers need real time to rest, reset, and reach homeostasis. It's a culture of safety and recovery is what boosts long-term success for everybody. And I feel like I'm going to be, this isn't like new information for you. Time isn't the only factor, for example. How we commute shapes nervous system states. Driving can be constant vigilance, yellow mode. Oh my gosh, the construction right now in the city. Train rides can be more rare moments of rest and even naps. And this is something that we can take into consideration. I have a 5-day training in the city, and I just was talking to my team about it. I'm like, the traffic's going to be horrific. And they're like, take the train. And I was like, oh my gosh, that sounds great. That sounds really relaxing. So we do want to think about like what it is that if we have choices that can take us in out of yellow and into green. Without buffer zones, daily stress becomes chronic and overwhelming, and our nervous systems thrive on a rupture repair. So we need the space to reset. Our whole theory, the work that we do as trauma therapists are about rupture, repair, rupture, repair. And I always say that we want the autonomic nervous system to experience the rupture repair first. When you come from a complex PTSD background, you're in rupture for a very long time. And you don't know what repair is like. But when we're starting to work with our polyvagal worksheets, when we're starting to work with understanding our states and shifting in and out of different states, now we're talking about creating a repair through maybe secure your space. Jim Knight does a lot of that with pendulation. You got your secure space, and then you pendulate into a mild disturbance, maybe just a snapshot, and then you toggle back to a repair. That's your autonomic nervous system. It says it thrives on that. Well, that's where it learns that it doesn't have to be in that yellow or that red from like chronically. Open utilitarian spaces can be efficient, but they don't feel safe. The nervous system is always scanning. Am I safe? Am I safe here? I mean, I know that you've guys seen what those cubicle look like. I was looking for pictures for this. I love doing the slides. And I was looking at the cubicles, and I'm like, I wanted to speak to something that I had experience with, but the nervous system is always scanning, am I safe? And so lighting, noise, aesthetics contributes to constant cues of autonomic regulation. So harsh acoustics and ugly visuals increase yellow state activity. Thoughtful designs promote health, creativity, and focus. I put the trading floor on here because that's where I worked when I was younger, and there was nothing relaxing about that. It was constant yellow. The whole place was yellow until you were in red. And if you weren't red naturally, they figured out how to be red by all the, I'll say, all the types of medicating that might have been going on. But it's interesting because I was very successful in the trading markets. And the reason why I was successful is because I was in green, and I brought traders into green because I have a good green voice, and I house green. And so I literally worked with trade. I would take the trades and execute them from the big banks all over the world. And I was able to do it from a very calm perspective. And that was what I brought to the table. So I kind of laugh when I say I've been a therapist my whole life, because I was definitely the therapist for a lot of these guys. And so, yeah, environment's important. It also gave me chronic fatigue syndrome, which is an immune disorder. So we need to think about what our environment is like. High alert surroundings, sirens, machinery, triggers, nervous system stress. Do you have an office that's on a street where there's a hospital down the street and there are constantly ambulances going back and forth? That is something that is an issue. Familiar comforting items like plants, photos, support the green state. A warm, personalized workspace can lower reactivity and increase presence. Even simple additions like noise canceling headphones can support safety. Love noise canceling headphones. And then where we work matters as much as what we do. So once again, going back to those noise canceling headphones, one of the things that we do with our clients is we want to encourage them, and we want to embrace what it is that they have control over and what they don't. And noise canceling headphones can be the answer to a lot of issues when it comes to trying to disconnect from a very stimulating external world, almost to the point of being dangerous.
Can,
Humans were
can,
wired for authentic
Paula,
social
Paula,
interaction. Yeah.
Paula.
I'm having a hard time hearing you. I'm sorry.
Yeah, sorry. Hey, I can also say that with my brain injured folks, noise canceling headphones actually can create issues because they can actually feel some of the stimulation stuff that goes on to counteract the noise outside. And so, good and bad. There's not just good with those.
Wait, can you elaborate on that? Because I want to
Yeah,
understand.
you have to inject a sound to be able to counter the external stimulation of the sound. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So, it's actually creating a sound, and some people can actually feel electrically and hear those sounds. It's not just imagined.
Okay. Good.
So that part of it can be overstimulating. I'm finding a lot of that with Apple Watches, with noise canceling headphones, with it's a frequency or a buzz. Exactly, Jessica. Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay. Thank you for that. Excellent. Um, Real conversations help undo defenses and activate the green state. What do those real conversations look like? Meetings don't count. Participation and playfulness matters. Social engagement boosts creativity, clarity, and connectedness. Encouraging casual connection makes teams more resilient and productive. The going back to the playfulness, it's hard to find playfulness, as therapists. And so I actually went out and searched for something that would be good for me, and I joined an improv group down the street, and that's been awesome. And one of the things that we do is called, I don't know, the singing ball toss or something. We do it all the time. And then I just saw it in one of the polyvagal write-ups. It was in Psychology Magazine as a great way to activate ventral vagal. And so there are things that we can be doing out there that can be engaging play. And so figuring out where play activates ventral vagal and what are some of the things that we can be doing, and I just think we're going to be learning more and more about that, there's going to be more out there. I know I'm going to be posting more on the Facebook page while we between books, just giving ideas on what we can recommend for our therapists and for our clients and then for ourselves. Public speaking isn't just scary, it's nervous system activation. Public speaking is now a course that you have to take in college, which a lot of students don't do very well at. Public speaking triggers autonomic fear responses, even more than death for some. Shaking, stuttering, shutting down is yellow, and then it can put you in red. There's that anxiety, and then you can shut down. And these responses are autonomic and outside of conscious control. You cannot control it. Novel environments and perceived high stakes do lead to threat to safety in the nervous system. You can't logic your way out of stage fright. It's a biological event, not a flaw. And Seth speaks to this because he's a director, an actor, a comedian, he's a journalist, and he talks about his first experiences and how horrible it was for him and how he didn't do very well. And he literally said that the space that took him where he was safe was doing karaoke. And I thought that was a great idea. I do a lot of public speaking, and I thought, karaoke, that's a good one. So regulation starts in a safe, low stake environment. So Seth says, I probably should have put quotes around this. I practiced in spaces where failure was allowed, like karaoke. The nervous system learns through experience, not through the pressure. And over time, repeated safety rewires fear into familiarity and flow. The goal isn't to be fearless, it's to feel safe enough to show up. And I love that. I know from personal experience, I remember like yesterday, my very first EMDR basic training. Oh my gosh, was I nervous. And I also remember when I started making short videos for social media. I was like, this is stupid. I'm talking to a phone. It makes no sense. It makes sense now. So it's just about practicing and creating a safe environment for yourself. Our body constantly scans for safety or threat through neuroception. Once again, that neuroception, and I want everybody to take this away. It is one of the three principles of polyvagal. Neuroception is that unconscious alarm system that's going 24/7. Well, you're sleeping, but it's always aware. And the more trauma somebody's experienced, the more hypervigilant they are, the more they're going to be in their sympathetic nervous system that's going to be tracking everything around them. And it takes away from the ability to focus. Fear of rejection in public settings can feel like a survival threat, and anxiety and overwhelm, once again, moving into yellow, moving into red, override our cognitive control. The connection to the prefrontal cortex is no longer available. I talk about adolescents that go to higher level of care. They come back, they could teach CBT, they could teach DBT. But you put them back in the environment that they were in to begin with, and their nervous system takes them right back into sympathetic and dorsal vagal shutdown. And everything they learned in that higher level of care is no longer available. And because at the end of the day, it's not about the adolescent. Sure, some of it is, but it's mostly about the environment that they're coming from, because it's the environment that they're reacting to begin with. And that's why family therapy is so important. You can't think your way out of fear. First, you must feel and name it. And there's Daniel Siegel's Name It to Tame It. So think your way out of fear. First, you must feel it and name it. That's what we do with parts work. That's what we do when we put language to our EMDR negative and positive cognitions and beliefs. And then comes recognizing the body cues to like tension and heart rate, and how that is step one to regulation. When you look at the trauma response worksheet that's on the website with the other trauma traffic light worksheets that basically came from, our lovely gorgeouses here. Here's our green, yellow, red. Um, it talks about the body sensations. It talks about what happens with heart rate, with blood pressure. It talks about more physiological responses. And there's also a chart on just body sensations. And you can there's a blank body, and then you can work with your client on where different body sensations show up and to give it language. So you can give the body sensations language, you can give the feelings language. We've got the polyvagal feelings chart. You can give the physiological experiences language. This is Name It to Tame It, and this is what we do as trauma therapists, putting language to nonverbal experiences. And just to throw in there, because it really gets me really excited, is that Daniel Siegel tells us that when you name something, when you connect that prefrontal cortex to a nonverbal experience, you're literally squirting neurotransmitters onto the amygdala. And those transmitters are associated with and similar to benzos. And benzos are very calming type of experience. And so naming it to tame it also creates that calm. And it helps with reducing the amygdala hijack. Our nervous system can co-regulate an audience in that my voice. So when I present, I think I present a lot from yellow, but when I'm doing a practicum, I move into my green voice and I can co-regulate. You can co-regulate with eye contact, tone of voice, facial expressions, and posture, using posture to signal warmth and confidence. When you appear safe and connected, others feel safe and connected too. Starting with authentic grounding practices, the goal isn't perfection, it's presence and regulation. I talk about this with a lot of therapists in my area, and I also talk about it with personal trainers because we have a lot of bullying going on. And bullying basically is going to be the body language of the client that walks into an environment. A bully can pick a victim right away just through their posture and their facial expressions and the angle of their head, where their eyes are going. And so a lot of the work that we can do to work with those that get bullied is about posture, is about body language and how you present yourself and what kind of facial expression you have, because you can basically be heading off bullying by how you present yourself. Seth gives us 7 ways that we can work with changing up how we present. And the first one was using our face. Facial muscles are part of our social engagement system. We cannot smile with our eyes and our mouth if we're not in green. We can't. It's impossible. So a full face smile signals safety and connection. Just curious, but what does your smile look like? Flat affect, seen in yellow and red, signals threat or disconnection. Expressive faces invite trust and help regulate both speaker and audience. So Michelle Obama, she's perfect. Her face just always puts me in a good mood. Look for a safe face. All right. Who knows who this is? Put it in the chat if you do. All right. Got to find a safe space. Looking for a warm, familiar expression can anchor you in the green zone. Even in large groups or online, scanning for safe spaces offers co-regulation. Visual contact with supportive people helps reduce anxiety and increase presence. And a large screen or in-person eye contact can create felt safety in real time. So that's good because that means that we can do this through our online venues. Eric, anybody figure out who this is? Anybody? Anybody? I want to see how up to date you guys are. He's killing it in the United States right now. Nobody? All right. That's all right.
He's the K-drama guy, isn't he?
He's J-Hope. Yep. He just touring in San Diego and
Yeah. See,
this kid, his smile, holy cow. He's not a kid though. He's 30-ish, but yeah, he's from BTS.
Oh, a kid to us, Paula.
Yeah, kid to us, but he just radiates green, radiates it. All right. Anyway, thought I'd throw it in there for the heck of it. Anchoring with routine. Routine, super important. Routine creates predictability, which lowers threat detection. Repeated cues, slides, intro rituals, family pacing, giving the nervous system a sense of control. What are things that like our clients do that we do that can be considered routine? Is there time to get up and to meditate or to have 10 minutes in the morning to journal or to stretch or do some yoga? It's about being able to do it on a repetitive basis that the autonomic nervous system appreciates the most. Practicing consistent habits in prep and delivery helps the body settle, and predictability supports autonomic stability, even in high stakes setting. So just a great way to, even thinking for ourselves what that would look like. Stephen Porges talks a lot about melodic tones and ear muscles, and the middle ear muscles versus the hearing high and low tones, which are going to be where our yellow. If you're in yellow, you can hear high tones and you can hear low tones a lot better than you can hear the middle range tones. Middle range tones are signals of calm and accessibility. The prosody activates the listener's social engagement system and builds connection. Flat tone, like in a lecture, the melodic tones will enhance the conversation and engage co-regulation. But inviting engagement through warmth, rhythm, and brief audience interactions. So, see, oh, why am I blanking on it? What's the, what is it that Stephen is doing? I want to say seeking safety, but I know that's not it because seeking safety is a trauma protocol. Safe and sound, right? Safe and sound is Stephen Porges put this together. I don't know if it's through the Polyvagal Institute. I think it's through another organization. And it literally is like 20 minutes a day. You listen to a specific type of music and it trains your brain to enter into ventral vagal through tones. And so, for example, all Disney music falls within the range of what we're talking about. Now, I don't know a lot about how it works, so I'm probably doing a horrible job of explaining it. But at the end of the day, tones are important, and melodic tones are especially important, and understanding, what it is that's soothing and activates green and what does not. Speaking, not reading. Speaking naturally creates a more engaging and regulated energy. Off the cuff delivery, hence improv. That's kind of where I'm having some fun. Even with notes, prioritize connection over perfection. Like, are we looking to read something so that we can perfect it? Or are we looking to be connected with the people that we're working with? And it's the same type of thing when we're doing our work. Natural speech activates reciprocity and social engagement. So let yourself be natural. Let your tone of voice rise and come down according to what it is that you're trying to communicate, and be emotional about it, because that's where it comes from. Breathing to regulate. This is, we all know about how to breathe to regulate. A long, slow exhale activates the vagal brake and calms the body. To relax, long exhales and then short inhales will actually shift into the green zone. But if you need to be energized, and I've been told to be careful with this, long inhales and short exhales will activate yellow. And then match breathing to desired nervous system states for performance readiness. So that breathing is key. The type of breathing I like to introduce recently is the 4-7-8-4 breathing. You can find it on YouTube. It's got research behind it around reducing anxiety. You reduce the heart rate 10 beats per minute by doing it 4 times, hence 4-7-8-4. And you inhale for 4, you hold for 7, you exhale for 8, and you do, like I said, you do it 4 times. Works beautifully. I'm sure everybody has something that they like to do. Been waiting for this slide. Anybody know who this is? I'll give you a second. You don't know who J-Hope is, that's okay. He's from Korea. But how about this one? No? All right, you're going to. She came to my area many years ago and spoke, talking about bullying and how we can work with our kids to present themselves. Her name's Amy Cuddy, and she's all about body posture and how posture tells the story. And it does tell the story. Like I said, you can walk in the room and you can send a message to everybody in that room based on how you present yourself. So open posture, upright spine, soft eyes signal confidence and safety. Collapsed posture may reflect or reinforce threat states. Shifting posture can influence internal state and external perception. So paying attention to posture shifts. They may be early cues of the nervous system change. So at the end of the day, once again, working in this community, I send some of my therapists who have younger kids, like middle school, that are really struggling with bullying, to a lovely personal trainer that works basically on this, how they can present themselves. And it's about literally the confidence that comes with it is beautiful. So I thought I'd throw in there a little Amy Cuddy video. We'll just watch a little of it. We're not going to watch the whole thing. But I just love how it starts. She's really cool. And you can look her up and find, she did a TED Talk, etc. But she's really onto something here. So here we go.
Okay. I have to say, it's mostly the boots, but I'm going to talk to you today about body language. And first, let's just talk a little bit about how body language, our nonverbal behaviors really, really influence the inferences that other people make about us. So people mostly, from our nonverbal behaviors, are inferring things like, how strong is this person? How trustworthy is this person? How competent is this person? How much do I like this person? And these inferences are responsible for really important outcomes. And we make them quickly, sometimes in a split second. And inferences from nonverbal behaviors like, how smart do I think this person is? They predict things like election outcomes. They predict who gets hired, who gets promoted, who gets asked out on a date. So all kinds of outcomes are determined by nonverbal behaviors, and that process happens pretty quickly. But I'm going to focus today on specific nonverbal behaviors. And before I do that, I want to ask you right now to think about, what are you doing with your bodies? So how many of you have your arms crossed or your legs crossed or even your ankles crossed? How many of you are making yourselves smaller so that you don't bump into the person next to you? How many people are sprawled out and actually have their arm draped on the chair next to them, or their knees spread? So I want you to pay attention to that. And I hope that in 10 minutes I'm going to convince you that if you tweak your nonverbal behaviors in really pretty easy and simple ways for a short period of time, it's going to make you feel more powerful through physiological changes in your body. So that's what I'm going to talk about today. So here are some examples of of power poses.
Okay, that's where we're gonna stop. Anyway,
So-
if you can go find it on YouTube, she's pretty cool. Excellent for maybe even having our clients watch it. There's a bunch of different options out there: 15 minutes, 3 minutes, 20 minutes. Her TED Talk's pretty good. So I was just thinking that would be cool. It's just a different example of a way that we could be working with our clients and giving them that psychoeducation. Okay, we're summarizing here. We are done. Oh my gosh, I'm sad. We are done. And 8 minutes left. That's me. I'm going to really miss this book. In fact, I was going to reach out to Seth, and I had to get his permission to change his video because he had jokes about our current political situation. Because at the time when he joked about it, it wasn't our political situation. And I told him that we were doing this book study, and he said, "Oh, let me know when you finish up." And so I'm going to reach out, but I'm going to let him know how amazing this has been and just really thank him for his work. But there are summaries in the back, and I just wrote down a couple, just put a couple on a slide, but there's literally like 25 of them. Just say takeaways from talking about polyvagal. And so I just thought I'd honor a couple of them because, like I said, there's literally like 3-4 pages of them. So facial expressions. Use your full face to signal safety and warmth. Expressiveness, especially around the eyes, invites trust and co-regulation. Find a safe face. Lock onto friendly, supportive faces to calm your nervous system and to stay grounded in connection. Familiar patterns and predictable rituals reduce threat and give your nervous system a sense of control. I'm not going to go through all of these. Posture. Open, upright posture signals safety and confidence inside and out. It can shift your state and how others perceive you. And we really want to think about this when we're sitting with our clients. Regulating breath, slow exhales, calm, energizing breaths can mobilize, match your breathing to your desired state. And thank you for a lovely book study. And I will see you all soon. We're going to just kind of open it up for a couple minutes. Just